Hey everyone, welcome back to another one of my plein air painting vlogs. I've been having a lot of fun making these outdoor painting videos, so I'm thinking of making them into a little video series on my channel. A few weeks ago, I found a spot with a nice view while I was driving around performing errands, and I knew that I just had to come back here and paint here. Hi, I just parked and now I'm going to be walking over to the spot. It's not a very long walk, I'll be there pretty soon. Hey, so now I'm at the spot where I am now is actually at a pretty rundown and abandoned park. But we're not here for the park, we're here for the good views. And actually there are quite a lot of interesting things to look at over here. If you look at behind me, there's a lot of greenery, and what's more important is the awesome view. I'm gonna give you a closer look at the view you can see from up here just in a bit. Something that's really concerning is that next to the playground there is a giant cliff right here. I'm not sure how this is considered safe for the kids, but yeah. Hey, it's pretty hot right now, but I think I found a spot. I'm gonna settle down here on the grass. I'm gonna set up the camera and bring out my sketchbook. I chose the composition to paint. It's right in front here. Let me show you. Yep. So this is the scene that I'm gonna paint. There's a lot of depth. I want to get this electric pole into the painting as well, and then I'll try to include some of these very long distance buildings in the background. Today I'll be painting in my little watercolor sketchbook. After painting outdoors a few times, I've come to prefer the sketchbook over having to set up like a whole tripod and painting easel. It's just a little bit more convenient, and I also get to sit down while I'm painting. And as usual, I'll be starting off with a light pencil sketch just to block out the main elements of my scene. I'm not drawing exactly what I see in this one. All of the main pieces in the view were spread pretty far apart, and I kinda had to squeeze objects closer together so that they would actually fit on the page of my sketchbook. So here's the sketch. But before I start the painting, I want to show you all the new paint palette that I bought for plein air painting. So what I like most about this thing is that it doubles as a water cup. With great difficulty removing this paint container portion of the palette, you can see that I'm left with this collapsible water cup. It's a pretty good size, and it's also very sturdy. It takes quite a lot of force to expand and collapse the cup, so I'm not really worried about it just like falling apart on me while I'm painting. And then there's this little paint container. After opening up the clip, you can see that the paint wells are below, and they're covered by this little silicone mat. So the purpose of this silicone mat is to keep the paints fresher for longer by keeping the whole thing airtight. And here's a little cheap brush set that I got for plein air painting. I really needed somewhere to store my brushes so that they don't get damaged when I throw them into my backpack. And this seems to do the job pretty well. I used 3 different brushes for this painting. One flat one to lay down the initial washes for the beginning part of the painting. I have a big round brush, which I'll be doing most of the painting with, and then the tiny small one for the details towards the end. I re-wet the paints with a little spritz from this mist bottle, and we're ready to go. As usual with all of my other landscape paintings, I start off by painting the sky. I'm using a lot of water for this wash because I don't want too much of the blue to be showing up in the sky. I'm using the flat brush and a lot of long horizontal strokes to get a smooth gradient from top to bottom. The wind was starting to pick up, so I had to clip the side of my sketchbook to prevent the page from just flipping over repeatedly on me. Now that I'm done with the sky, I'm mixing a green to paint in the land portions of the scene. The mixing area on this palette is pretty small, so I had to be really aware of how much space I'm taking up to mix up all of these colors. Yeah, the last thing I need is to run out of mixing space when I'm only halfway through the painting. Now I'm laying in the greens, starting from the background and moving towards the foreground. Due to atmospheric perspective, the areas behind will be slightly lighter than the areas in the foreground. So I use a lighter color by mixing in a bit more of white and blue. I continue just trying to fill up all of the white space on the page. I'm using a dark green for all of the foliage on the left side and like a brownish color for the ground that's right in front of me. Now with all of the bigger shapes in place, I can just start to work on the smaller details. I chose to start painting in the buildings all the way in the background. From this zoomed in shot, you can see that the buildings are very desaturated, so I'm using a blue color to paint the buildings in. Slowly working my way towards the foreground, I paint in these little trees that's sitting on the left side of this electric pole. The leaves are of a much brighter green because they're catching a lot of the sunlight. After that, I start to paint these really cool looking branches on the top left of my scene. Using a dark brown color, I paint with the bristles of my brush spread far apart so that I can get these really thin lines that mimic the texture of the branches. Now I'm starting to work on all of the foreground elements that's directly in front of me, such as the little dirt area and the tiny little bushes over there. The shapes that I have on my sketchbook are kind of flat right now, so I'm painting in the shadows to give everything more dimensionality and more of like a 3D look. I start painting in the tree area on the right side as well. The sun is pretty high up right now and it's casting a lot of these very dark and hard shadows in the leaves of the trees. I'm keeping the hard edges on the top and then I'm slowly blending in these shadows into the background color. It was almost noontime at this point, and I was having trouble with the sun moving in and out of the clouds. Because when the sun comes out, it casts a lot of hard and dark shadows on the trees, and when it goes back into the clouds, the lighting becomes a lot more soft. So I had to really just commit to one specific lighting scenario. And not only that, the sun made it very difficult for me to just look at my own painting. There was so much glare, especially when the paint is still wet. It was very difficult for me to just determine how bright or how dark or how saturated my paint was, and it will always dry at a different color than what I was expecting. So yeah, that kind of added a whole nother level of complexity to this painting. Alright, now that I'm finally satisfied with the details of the area that's right in front of me, it's time to paint in the tower itself. I'm going with an almost black color and I'm using the smallest brush I have to paint in these thin little poles. I tried my best to keep my hand steady to paint in these straight lines, but you can see that they still ended up pretty crooked in the end. This is mostly because I was propping up the left side of the sketchbook using my other hand, and the sketchbook still ended up wobbling quite a bit while I was painting. Now that the framework of the whole tower is in place, I can really begin to start painting in the little beams. I'm using my brush almost like a pencil at this point. I'm being careful not to press down too hard so that the little beams end up being a little thinner than the main supporting beams on the outside. After that, I start to paint in the wires that's hanging overhead. I have to make sure that the perspective of these things are correct so that the final image will look believable. After finishing the first tower, then I start to work on the second one that's a bit off in the distance. With the 2 towers done, I begin to work on the final details of the painting. So this includes just polishing up the foliage that's up in the foreground, as well as the dirt area in front of me. So here's the final painting. It took me about 2 hours from sketch all the way to the final painting, and I'm pretty happy with it. I wish that I could have also included this wet area that's underneath the towers, but there's just not enough space on my page to do that. Now with the painting done, it's time to pack up and go home. Right, so I finished the painting, packed up, and it's time to go back. Good thing now that the sun is like behind clouds again, so it's not too hot, not feeling too sweaty despite it being like noon time. And as for the painting itself, I'm pretty happy with it. I was struggling a bit with the light again. Throughout the painting, the sun was going in and out of the clouds, so I had to really adjust my eyes to pick like a fixed lighting scenario and not just try to adapt to whatever's happening. So yeah, walking back to my car. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, please subscribe and maybe give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.